welcome back. We are live once again with the Think Fitness Life podcast, episode 20. And today we have a special podcast for you. We are going to be interviewing Emmett Murphy, a coworker of mine and someone who's been in the industry for 30 years. And we'll get to introduce him a little bit later. It's your first time listening to the podcast. We like to dive into everything that is mindset, exercise, and nutrition related, and not just limited to those either. But we have myself, the host, Matt Gluckman, and then I have two brilliant individuals along with me on this ride. I have Eric Menchie and Mike Urso over there in Boston. So today, like I said, we're going to be listening to a about 40-minute interview with Emmett. So we're just going to introduce that a little bit. Did anybody have any news they wanted to bring up and discuss today?
Yes. I was reading about a study about a weight loss anti-obesity drug that they're trying to push through the industry. It's called Metabosin.
Nope.
Have any of you heard of
Looking
it?
it up right now.
I have not.
It was so it's designed from or based off of capsaicin
Okay.
found in chili peppers that they're trying to slowly release that throughout the day so it exerts its anti-obesity effect on a person without having adverse effects, which is interesting, but at the same time, it's like, why are we trying to create a drug to help anti-obesity? Like, I don't think it's gonna. Personally, I don't think it's gonna show great effects unless you're on a structured nutritional plan.
Yeah, this is like it's a Band-Aid, right? It goes along with
Yeah.
getting bariatric like some stomach surgery, it just because you get your stomach shrunk and you can't fit as much food, it will help you lose weight, yes, but you still have to change your habits. Like at the end of the day, yeah, it's really just a
How do you
Band-Aid.
spell it?
Yeah. Metabosin. I just think it's another marketable thing that they're just kind of they're going to upsell completely, get people's hopes up of like, hey, if you take this, you're going to be skinny forever and you can eat what you want. And it's like, well, no.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm trying to find who the owner of this company is. You know what I mean? Or the parent company, because that's what I'm curious to understand.
Oh yeah, like
Yeah,
who funded
exactly.
the
Who's
studies and whatnot.
who's playing in their
Yeah,
corner essentially?
it was interesting reading it. It said that there was a study done at the University of Wyoming that they gave this to mice and they showed the benefits of losing weight, but the mice were eating a high fat diet in the studies. So
So
I
they
guess you
already
can look
had
at
the
the study and
mice
say, well,
in like
was it the
ketosis
high fat
essentially.
diet, or was it like a high fat? Like, hey, this is going to promote some sort of fat oxidation and lower carbs, which helps with losing weight and anti-obesity, plus this drug. So when they come out with a drug, they're going to be like, well, you can have any diet and it will
Interesting.
work, but it's
So,
like, no, it has to
what
work
is the
on
Yeah.
mechanism of capsaicin and
certain
its benefits? I know it has benefits, but I mean, are you familiar with what like just overall health benefits of capsaicin are?
Well, isn't it just basically like how a lot of like
yeah, it's supposed
cutters or supplements to help you quote unquote lose weight? They'll have like
Yeah,
black
but I'm
pepper
curious of like what
extract
is
in
the
it and stuff like
mechanism of
that. Like, isn't
that's
it kind
actually
of
working here?
similar?
Like what is it doing? Because I'm reading like I'm trying to read on it like right now as we're sitting here, and it just says it causes white fat cells to stop storing energy and instead burn energy, and it turns white fat into brown fat. Which brown fat is obviously, as we know, is metabolically active and can actually, you'll see like minimal amounts of white fat and a lot of brown fat on people who are more physically fit. It's really interesting. So that's interesting. I don't know if that has to do with the drug itself or if that is a mechanism of the capsaicin. That's some research I have to do.
I wonder. I would think it's the mechanism because I was reading it like it prevents or shows improvements in blood sugar, blood pressure, and like cholesterol. So there's got to be some something in it that has a very good beneficial effect on those
I
sources. But I
think I
definitely
think
think that's something
they're
I need to dive into a
stretching.
little
I
bit
think
more
they are
just to
taking
figure
the
out
fact that
the
they can
mechanism.
prove that this extract or this capsaicin can stimulate a little bit higher caloric or fat burning per hour. They haven't proved it in long term. They haven't proved if your body builds a threshold to it. I think they're just kind of banking on the fact that they can now market that and say that to people and make it as easy as 1, 2, 3. You're gonna combat your obesity, and it's unfortunately selling people the pipe dream.
Well, I look at it and it's a they study these mice for 8 months, right? Not a very long time. And then so the head scientist is quoted in this article, which is from Newsweek. I'm reading that says that capsaicin not only prevented obesity not only prevented obesity, but it also promoted weight loss. So they're saying that capsaicin prevented obesity. I don't know how you can become. I mean, maybe, but becoming obese over an 8 month period. Um, I don't know how you can make a claim that it prevents obesity for over an 8 month study. Like, so I'm just skeptical when I read something like that.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, you really have to
It's
read between the lines. I mean, when they say fends off obesity, so basically to a medical definition, they would say, oh, well, it stopped the person from uh, getting a BMI any higher than 30. Well, is it, causation doesn't mean, or
Right.
correlation doesn't mean causation, so were they already gonna not go to a BMI index of 30 or above anyway if they had just done the same study without the capsaicin? You know, it just, I don't know. I think they're just really going for a stretch just to have a medicine that they can sell or a product to sell that they can
Right.
make these claims for.
or were they? Well, I mean, I might have looking at the study wrong. Were they, if they fed the mice high fat, thinking this is going to cause obesity, go back and do a study and feed mice just processed carbohydrates, and then give the drug to this and see if you get similar. Which I don't know.
Right. Right. Because a high fat diet can actually promote weight loss in itself. So of course it's going to accelerate your effects. One would think. Well, again, I think there is something to it here. There's definitely something to it, but I also think that they'll push out any drug for a profit. At the end of the day, people already are familiar with capsaicin and its potential connection to increasing thermogenesis and which I believe is what's going on there too, like increasing your ability to burn fat, your core temperature, and going up. But to me, there's just it's again, it's a band-aid at the end of the day. This does not go to the root of the problem of why people are obese in the first place. So for me, there is no such thing as a magic bullet.
So yeah. So I'm with you, Mike. Definitely be skeptical on certain studies, and got to read in depth. And like it was interesting when I was reading it, and then it was like, okay, this just seems too good to be true, right?
If it sounds too good to be true, it's because it usually is.
So that's all I got for the news on for today. But it was kind of
Oh
a
yeah,
big
absolutely.
kind of topic I wanted to dive into.
Um, yeah, I guess the only thing I want to bring up before we let the interview run is just we go into discussing the 10 laws of basically primal living, the primal blueprint laws, and this is um, resources and referencing Mark Sisson, a very respectable gentleman in the fitness and health nutrition industry. And we didn't, Emmett and I only probably got to dive into 3 or 4 in depth, but I'll just go over them real quick. They're pretty straightforward, but you'd be surprised at how many people don't do these things. Eat lots of plants and animals. That's 1. 2, avoid poisonous things. I guarantee 99% of the people listening to this podcast drank or ate something that was somewhat poisonous today. Move frequently at a comfortable pace. Sprint once in a while. Get adequate sleep. 6, play. 7, lift heavy things. 8, get adequate sunlight. 9, avoid stupid mistakes. And 10, use your brain, like strengthen your brain. Think, read. Knowledge is power. Again, we only got into depth for a couple of these, but right off the bat, what do you guys think about when you hear these 10 laws?
I think they're good guidelines. I think they're pretty straightforward. They're not too in depth where people might get confused. I know you can break them down and get in depth into a lot of those areas, but I definitely like it's a it's a blueprint. So it's like a structure of what you need to do to live a healthy long life.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. I like no. I actually like play, where he says, people should play more. To me, that's a big one that I've come to a realization of recently, especially being on coming off of being on vacation last week, and I've exercised like 5 of the 7 days I was away, but I also did a lot. I played soccer, I played cornhole, played volleyball, I played badminton. I was sprinting up the driveway because it was a hill. There was just I was doing fun things, and it brought me back to like feeling like a kid again. And I do feel like there's just such a primal nature to that one specific one. Whereas like if you just do that, it's good for you mentally, it's good for you physically, and I can 100% agree with that one being on there. More people should actually consider playing a little bit more often.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
something I
I
need
do. I do a
to work
pickup
on. More
soccer game
play.
every Wednesday, and that's basically my workout for the day. Maybe a little lifting if I have the time, the schedule permits. But like I was just on a week vacation in the Outer Banks, and most time, yeah, there's 2 days I did like a quote unquote more organized workout, but most time I'm just like playing with my dog, playing with my brother-in-law and niece and nephew, just on the beach, just out and about doing things, and yeah, it goes a long way. And I think one important one that I look at is move frequently at a comfortable pace and sprint once in a while, because I feel like people find themselves in between those two ranges and they never really get that stress response that they're looking for. And your body really needs only sort of two main um, stimulants, or yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Stimulants of stress. Like you want that low intensity to moderate for a longer duration, and then you should have bouts of that higher intensity, pushing yourself to your max, so to speak. That'll help adjust you to progress through time as you get older.
I agree. As you age, that's a great addition because sprinting is one of those things where, like, people can maintain a decent level of strength as they get older, but power is something that diminishes rather rapidly as you get older. And sprinting is one way to maintain like power and explosive nature, because you just never know when you're in a bad situation and you need to get the hell out of there. Sprinting can come in handy as in other words, like I've been playing, I say play because it is kind of like play, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu lately. And when I practice that, it is like play, but it's also like I feel like while it's great self defense, and I feel like I can hold my own if I was attacked. Being able to sprint is even more important than that. You don't want to have to even be involved in an altercation, and you just never know. Um, and so sprinting, I always feel like even if I don't want to get tangled up, I with someone, I can always outrun them most of the time. So sprinting is extremely valuable on so many different fronts for sports performance, for everything, but especially for old age and being able to combat the effects of the aging and the diminished power over time.
Yeah, some of the effects of sprinting actually reduce aging on the cellular level, and sprinting
Healthy
will help burn
mitochondrion.
more calories after your workout, known as exercise post oxygen consumption. And now, um, you know, just briefly introducing him, he has a master's in exercise physiology. This is Emmett Murphy again, who you'll have a chance to listen to here in a second. He has a master in exercise physiology. He's NASM certified. He just did the Primal Blueprint certification, and he began working with paraplegic athletes. And in 1992, he wrote an article that was published by the Strength and Conditioning, the Journal of Strength and Conditioning magazine. And look where he is now with all the years of experience. And he's just such a brilliant guy to have conversations with. And he's turned me on to so many different people. Dr. Gundry, Dr. Mercola, Mark Sisson, Dr. Terry Walls, kind of all these brilliant people in the field. So I'm really excited for you guys to hear that. But yeah, so this article though, it was effects of standard set and circuit weight training on exercise post oxygen consumption. So two groups, one doing standard set training and one doing circuit weight training, and then they measure the way that they burn calories after the workout. And I don't know, it's just so funny because it seemed like a staple, something that we were already sort of supposed to know when you went and did your interview at Equinox, and then they sat you down and they said, when you do your comp session with a potential client, this is part of the PowerPoint, and it had a whole graph about EPOC and circuit training. So I thought that was pretty funny. So really cool that his article got published, and I'm excited for you guys to listen to this interview with Emmett Murphy. And next week, we're going to be going into fasting. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe to our channel and feel free to send in an email if you have any questions or comments. It's thinkfitnesslife@gmail.com. Again, one word, thinkfitnesslife@gmail.com. Enjoy the interview. Take care. And we are live once again with the Think Fitness Life podcast. And I'm lucky to be sitting next to Emmett Murphy, who will be interviewing for our first guest on our podcast show. So I'm happy to have you here with me, Emmett.
Very happy to be here.
And
hopefully I can add something.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I think that was like one of the first things that came to mind when I was thinking of people to interview was you, because when I first came to Salt Lake and Excel in general, you were the first person I spoke to here, and I just really loved your mindset and your approach, and all the names and people that you would refer me to and turn me on to, and I just learned a lot and really added more tools to my tool belt. So I'm really happy to get to pick your brain more.
Great.
And in a forum where other people can listen to some of the knowledge that you have.
Yeah, it's a fun time to really, because there's so much information out there right now, and we have access to it through podcasts, blogs, everything out there. So I've done a blog for about maybe 5 years now. Have not done a podcast, but I listen to a ton of podcasts, and I like the podcast in the fact that you can ask questions and have conversations. When you're doing a blog, it's basically just a one-person conversation.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure you get feedback on your blog.
I do.
Like
yes.
That,
yeah.
Questions and stuff.
Ideas for future topics, things like that.
Yeah. Well, I just want to also add in that you have 30 years of experience in this industry.
Almost 30 years experience.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So tell me about kind of where you began, how it transcended into where you are now, and maybe a little bit about how the industry has changed along the way.
Okay. So I started doing it in graduate school. I was working on, I got a master's degree in exercise physiology, and they had me working with a lot of athletes from different teams, the volleyball team, the track team, things like that. And also had me teaching classes, racquetball, weight training. And that was all really fun.
Yeah.
Okay. And I liked that. That was part of that bigger, stronger, faster. I was probably like 23, 24, and you want to help people become the best athletes possible. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then in one of my classes, we trained paraplegic athletes. That's and amazing. I saw immediately almost the effect it had on their lives.
Yeah.
This wasn't just about training. For them, this was about quality of life. Mm-hmm. And being able to move and being able to have a challenge in their life, being able to have an accomplishment. So kind of a light went off in my head. I'm like, wow, you could really have a positive impact on someone's life if you can get them to commit to a certain type of lifestyle. So it's kind of how that's set up. The industry, it's been funny because when I first started, that was right kind of in the Nautilus craze and the bodybuilding and all of that.
Yep.
And it's gone to, through machines and Nautilus and, all of that to more of a functional type of fitness
Yeah.
where you don't need much equipment to train people. How hard is it to take somebody to the park with a couple of kettlebells, run sprints, do push-ups,
some
do
hills
pull-ups
or
on the monkey
something.
bars, do
Yeah.
hills, all
Walking
of that.
lunges,
Exactly.
Right, anything.
So it's actually much funner now because there's really no restrictions on, people other than, if people have certain injuries or different things like that.
Yeah.
When I first started training, most of my clientele was female, and most of them were, having babies, having kids, wanting to get back in shape.
This is after the college.
This is after college. Okay. And that's transitioned now. I've got clients who are well into their 80s, and it becomes quality of life. What can you do for them, not just with your training, but giving them advice on what else they should be doing, things like that.
Longevity,
right. Quality of life. People have more and more health issues as they get older, but what you're trying to do is manage those and keep them as active as possible. I've got one guy who he's had both his hips replaced. He had a shattered femur. He had multiple surgeries. Okay, so he trains with me once or twice a week. Most important thing I've been able to do with him over the past year, he's trained with me total probably 8-10 years now, is get him swimming. Yeah. Okay, a couple days a week, he goes to a class. They have bikes in the pool. They do all kinds of movement, which is great for him. It really has improved his range of motion.
Is this the gentleman who shattered his femur recently?
Yes.
Yeah. And so, how old was he when he shattered his femur?
So he was probably 82, and one of my
and the doctors didn't think he was going to be able to.
I didn't think he was going to live. I mean, when I saw him when it first happened, but he has a good will and a good attitude, and he just basically took one step at a time. Amazingly, he had, I believe it was 7 hours of surgery to repair his artificial hip and then his shattered femur. And they put him back together, and inside of 3 months, he was back in the gym working out with me. And the other week, he's going down the stairs now with no hands. Yeah. Which is, I was like, wow, that's significant.
Absolutely.
That's
at
really
82, being able to come back from something like
Absolutely.
that, and even be able to withstand surgery.
Yes.
Most people don't want to do surgery after a certain age because they're afraid that they won't even make it off the surgery table.
Exactly.
So that's amazing, and I think kind of like you said, not only has he been training with you for a while, and clearly he's been focused on quality of life and longevity, but because of that, his mindset, his body is geared towards fighting, right?
Yes.
It doesn't give up. It doesn't just accept what's been given and call it a day, right? Because so many people could have said, you know what, I'm 82, shattered my femur, that's it for me, I'm done.
Right.
But he mentally was like, no, I'm gonna bounce back from this.
Exactly, because you want to do hard things. That's part of the things with training, mentally and physically, is you don't want somebody cutting your lawn, cleaning your house, doing your landscaping. Okay, that's why we have jobs, because people do all that. They don't do anything anymore physical. Okay,
I completely agree.
You want to do as much movement as you can, move in all planes of motion, do some things that are really hard. Okay, kettlebell swings, maximum.
We're getting a little ahead of ourselves because I know you want to go into the primal laws. So I just want to introduce that real quick so we can really dive into those. But I completely agree. Modern society, the way that we've transcended into things has just made things more and more convenient for us and too easy for us. And even though it is a survival mechanism for, obviously wanting to have your cells proliferate and live on, you seek comfort, but at the same time, we can't be too comfortable because then you're not prepared for when life throws hardships your way. I think making yourself the strongest version of yourself and sort of getting yourself prepared mentally, physically, and biologically to withstand whatever life is thrown your way.
Yes,
plays a huge role. But so I just want to go back to, you said you had your master's in exercise physiology. You wrote a paper on...
Yeah, I have my thesis published. It was basically around about EPOC and circuit weight training versus EPOC and standard weight training. And if you don't know what EPOC is, that's
exercise post-oxygen consumption.
Exactly. So when I'm done exercising, depending on what type of intensity I worked at, I'm going to burn more calories for the next 1 to 6 hours, depending on, what I've done. So what I found with that was that a circuit weight training type activity where you're doing, like, let's say we do a set of push-ups, rest 15 seconds, go to a set of pull-ups, rest 15 seconds, go to a set of squats. So you're doing a circuit with less rest period. Okay, you're giving rest period to each specific movement that you're doing, muscle group that you're doing, exactly. But you burn a lot more calories training that way. So not
even
only
after you leave the gym,
after you leave the gym,
right?
Yeah. So the intensity that you work out in the gym, that's going to determine how many calories you burn long term, later on during the day. Because if you work at a higher intensity, that carries over for the next several hours.
Yeah, I think one key thing that I like to talk to people about is like there's 168 hours in a week. You might work out for 5 of them. We want those 5 hours to be as efficient as possible to maximize the way that you're burning calories in those other 163 hours.
Yes.
But so that paper you wrote was published in
the National Journal of Strength and Conditioning.
Yeah, that's
NSCA.
That's awesome. Yeah. And then you're NASM certified, you're weight loss certified.
I'm a certified personal trainer, certified weight loss specialist, and then I just got my primal health coaching like within the last 2 weeks.
With Mark Sisson,
with
right?
Mark Sisson,
You introduced
Primal
me
Blueprint.
to him. Yeah, he's a wonderful guy, brilliant guy. He's got actually a line of products now for those of you who are listening, different salad dressings and oils and other condiments that are healthy and made with good quality material rather than just vegetable oil and all that crap that's out there.
And they have like 3 ingredients.
Yeah.
So if you look at the packaging, it'll have olive oil, whatever type of oregano, different things like that. But
be simple.
Very simple. Okay, which is great because that's what we want.
Yep.
We don't want to be eating things out of a package that have 100 ingredients.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys know the Food Babe. She's got a great on Twitter website, but she's the one who exposed Wendy's for their chicken sandwich having over 100 ingredients in it.
Yeah,
and 100 ingredients of what?
Yeah,
that's, and I guarantee you most of those are not good for you.
Oh, for
sure. In fact, 99% are not.
Probably foreign to our system.
Exactly.
Doesn't know how to digest it. And you also informed me that this woman was also the one who exposed Subway for having yoga, a product that's in yoga mats in their bread.
Right. It's a chemical that makes the yoga mat spongy, which is good if you're kneeling on it, but it's not good to eat. You don't want to eat it. Exactly.
So let's dive into these primal blueprint laws. I know they're pretty basic, but they are super important for people to hear. They are the 10 primal laws.
10 primal laws. Yeah. Okay. So what I'm working on with this is I'm going to start doing presentations and seminars called Primal Living, Optimal Health. Okay. Because I believe if you can implement most of these 10 laws into your life, it'll really improve your health and quality of life.
Let's hear those principles. Okay. Yeah, list them off.
So number 1, eat healthy plants and animals. And that would seem fairly simple. Chicken sandwich, whatever. It's not that simple in America, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So if you're going to eat egg, you can't just go in the grocery store and buy an egg off the shelf. Yeah. It's not going to be healthy. These chickens are cooped up. They don't move around. And what that has caused down the line is eggs are not healthy as they used to be. Right. So what you need to do is find a local farmer's market, local food co-op, local egg farmer, where you can get eggs that are pastured. Means that chickens are out running around in the field, eating bugs, eating worms, pecking around, which is what they've done for, however many millions of years they've been around.
You're only as good as what you eats.
Exactly. Right. Okay, so Joel Salatin, do you know who he is?
No.
Okay, so he is a kind of farmer that he's trying to take things back to how they were.
That basic
so
way,
animals can be how they are. So he does rotational farming. Okay. And basically, so you have the cows go through and they eat the grass. Okay. And then they poop all over. And then the chickens come through following them. Chickens are insectivores. They eat insects. So the chickens peck out all the insects. Then you send the turkeys through, and it's just a rotational crop system, an animal system. The animals are much healthier. The plants are much healthier. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And that's how it used to be. There used to be, I believe, about 100 million buffalo roaming around in North America, eating grass, roaming around, pooping. The chickens, turkeys, everything would follow them. It was a whole big ecosystem. Okay. And now what we do, we just take the cows, put them all in a, CAFO condensed animal farming system.
Yeah.
We put all the chickens, put 1 million chickens in a warehouse. That's not good at all.
And then we give them hormones to grow. We give them antibiotics so they don't get sick and they don't die.
We feed them corn and soy, and they don't eat corn and soy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Buffalo, cows, they're herbivores. They eat grass. Okay.
Yeah.
Chickens are insectivores. They eat insects. Okay. And that's what you want. You want them eating what they were evolutionary pattern of eating.
Yeah.
And those are the type of foods you want to eat. So then you go to
sourcing. Sourcing plays a huge role. Always dive further into your selections.
Absolutely.
Or ask where this came from. Maybe even go up to the butcher and ask when you grab that package of meat, hey, can you tell me more about this meat or where this came from?
Right. And we're lucky to live in a place, Salt Lake, who has lots of farmers market, lots of specialty type grocery stores where they have access to organic, grass-fed, pastured, all those types of things.
Yeah, I really feel like, I spent 8 years in Boston, and just being out here for the 7-8 months that I've been here, I just feel like there's a much more investment on the individual level for just the quality of products that they put out there, and people are a lot more health conscious and understand the negatives to pesticides, and they talk about like watershed, not trying to get chemicals in to leak into the water system. So I just feel like I feel like people are more health conscious here.
Yeah,
for sure.
And certain parts of the world, people have more information or more connected with nature as well.
Mm-hmm.
So back in, I can't remember, it was maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, but when Haiti had those big earthquakes and it destroyed, their infrastructure, their farming, their everything. So a couple of countries from the United States sent down some seeds, and these are GMO seeds. Well, in Haiti, they have no clue what GMO seeds are. You know what I mean? They've never seen this before.
Yeah.
So they planted them, and, the food came up, and they sent the rest of the seeds back. They're like, we're not going to eat this. And that's one of the poorest countries in the world. But they realized, okay, that's not food.
Interesting.
That's from a chemical company. Yeah. So you have to know what you're eating. Okay, if you rip open a box or package or eat an egg, where's that coming from?
Yeah.
Okay, and what did that eat coming down the line?
Right.
In fact, where I get my eggs, which is an interesting story, it's at the farmers market in Murray, Utah, and the guy who raises the chickens, he's a 90-year-old farmer in Morgan, Utah. Okay, and he's so into it that he raises insects to feed to his chickens. So
awesome.
They have a big, beautiful yolk. They're fantastic eggs. They taste wonderful. And you'll notice if you start eating this way too, not only will you feel better, but food tastes better.
Yeah, right?
Absolutely.
There's more nutrient filled rather than just being empty calories. So that's in Murray?
It's called Utah Food Co-op.
Oh, you did tell me about this.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to go check that out.
And one of the kind of cool things they have is they have different products. Most of them are organic, wild-caught fish, different things but most of them they try and get local. Mm-hmm. So most of the produce is grown within 500 miles of here, either in Utah or, Colorado, things like that. Most of the beef, pork, etc., comes from ranches in this area. So not only are you getting food that's healthier, you're supporting your local farmers and ranchers. Right. Okay, and here's the thing. If I grow spinach in my garden and I go out and pick some and eat some.
Now you're outside.
It's going to be much more nutrient dense than spinach that's coming from California and is 2 or 3 weeks old as well. Okay. Yeah. Plus I'm moving around.
Right.
Okay. When I'm farming ranching, get vitamin
doing
D
things yourself now. Right.
Absolutely.
So it's funny that like the first law of the primal blueprint laws, you'd think is so simple to follow, but it's so difficult because of the poor regulations in this country.
Yes.
And just sort of the finance focused systems versus health focused systems.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm going to throw out 2 books for people if you want to read more into this. Yeah. One of them is called Sugar, Salt, Fat. Okay. And it's about how food companies set up their foods to make them highly addictive, just like the cigarette companies.
Oh, they have these bliss point studies where they bring kids in.
I believe it's Philadelphia, where they bring little 10, 12-year-old kids in to try their cookies or different products on them.
And if you think like Pringles or something, once you pop, you don't stop. They do science studies to figure out when is that bliss point of they just keep eating. Right.
And it's exactly, the kids are like, okay, so that's too sugary,
Too
not sugary
sweet or
enough.
something.
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
And then the companies, until they get it exactly right, because they don't want you to eat 2 potato chips. They want you to eat the whole bag, And that's one of them. The other one is called The Big Fat Surprise. And it's by Nina Techholtz. She's an investigative journalism. And it's about how we got down to this place now where we're so unhealthy as a country.
She has a great interview with Joe Rogan.
She does.
But yeah, she's brilliant. And she was kind of the first one to say, no, guys, fats aren't the problem. It's sugars. And here's why we're being told that fats are the problem.
Yes. Yeah.
In industry terms. So I'm going to, just so people are listening, I'm going to include this stuff in the show notes. So you guys can reference these books and different information. So sugar, salt, fat, Big Fat Surprise. Let's go through the next law.
Number 2, kind of along these lines as well, avoid poisonous things. Okay. And the big 3 as far as poisonous things are sugar, number 1 by far. Number 2, processed carbohydrates, which basically turn into sugar inside of 5 or 10 minutes inside your body. Number 3 is industrial seed oils, corn oil, canola oil, those types of things. Vegetable oils. Yeah. So those are the 3 things that you want to really get out of your diet. And if you're looking to improve your health and your quality of life, if you can remove those 3 things from your diet, you will see a noticeable improvement in like 90 days.
Yeah.
And I would challenge anybody, if you don't believe me on this, then go listen to, all these different podcasts that are out there. Fat Burning Man, Joe Rogan, Nina Techholtz, and listen to some of the information they have. And then also go in and get your blood tested and see what your markers are as far as your HDL, your triglycerides, different things like that. And then take a 90-day challenge. Say, okay, I'm going to be good for 90 days and see what happens, to your fasting insulin. During that time. And that way it's motivating, because if you can not only say, okay, realistically, you can see what's going on outside your body. Okay. If you're losing body fat, your waist is going to shrink. Your clothes are going to fit better, and people are going to say, hey, what have you been doing? Okay. You can't really see what's going on inside your body. But simple blood tests, okay, and you can find, I usually get mine through Life Extensions, and I can get a full panel for, usually they'll have a sale a couple times a year for like $200. I mean, everything, fasting, insulin, CRP, hemoglobin A1C, all the tests that are really recommended by Dr. Gundry, Dr. Davis from Wheat Belly.
And you just go to like a...
Yeah, so you just go to a lab. They'll have a couple labs around town.
And they'll send you
I think in Salt Lake County, they have maybe 3 or 4 core labs. And so what you do is you go in and sign up, and then they'll send you an email. Here's what we need. You print that out. You bring it in the lab, draw your blood. A week later, send you an email. Boom.
That's some really good advice for people that are listening, wondering about where their blood markers are and where they're at biologically. Right. Because you can't see all that stuff going on.
You can't see what's going on inside your body. Yeah. But you can do a simple blood test once or twice a year, and that can tell you a whole lot about what's going on in your body.
Absolutely.
Dr. Gundry, who's like, I love him. He's kind of what got me into this. Dr. Stephen Gundry's written a really good book. Came out about a year ago called The Plant Paradox. If you guys want to geek out, it's a really good...
Learn all about lectins.
And he's a practicing physician, so he's got plenty of patient and plenty of data on this to back up, what he's preaching.
Yeah.
But, getting back to that, that's what he says, you show me what your fasting insulin numbers are, and I'll tell you what your quality of life is going to be over the next 20 years. Yeah. Just simple things like that.
I think one thing I'd like to hear you explain, because you've explained it to me a few times, and I can't remember it all, every detail, is just, and I think people need to hear it, is the way sugar is in your body, how the way it acts. Like, I know that it makes your body, the environment, very acidic, and it allows for disease to thrive in that environment. But on the biological level, how does sugar interact with your system when you put a bunch of sugar in your system?
Okay, well, number 1, which is fairly easy, it just causes you to age faster, which no one wants that. Every cell in your body, too, if you're taking in more sugar, your body's going to age a whole lot faster. Okay, so if you want to remain young, vibrant, etc., don't eat sugar and don't eat processed carbohydrates. Okay, so what happens is it's interesting when you take sugar into your body. Okay, whether it's sugar or processed carbs, dumps into your stomach, and then it's going to go into your bloodstream fairly quickly in your small intestine, large intestine. Okay, so what's your body going to do when the blood sugar starts to rise? It's going to start to produce more insulin. Okay, to combat that. So it's going to get you on a roller coaster where your blood sugar's rising, your insulin's rising. So your insulin causes your blood sugar to come back down, and it will often crash. Okay, then you get on a roller coaster. Then you're like, wow, I just ate a bagel a half hour ago, and now I'm like famished again. 30, 60 minutes, and then you get the shakes, and you've got to eat again.
Yeah.
Okay, so your body, your energy is on a big roller coaster. Okay, blood sugar and insulin. Okay, and basically that's a problem because
that blood sugar crashes, you crave more sugar, you eat more sugar,
exactly.
and then it rises again, you feel good, and then you crash again.
Yeah, so similar to, and this is kind of an extreme case, but it's not really. Okay, so that if you eat sugar, okay, you can't just eat like 2 cookies. You're going to eat the whole bag at some point.
Yeah.
Okay, you can't just eat sugar for like a half an hour. You're going to be eating sugar all day.
It's Nina Techholz talks about
she
this.
Does.
And her viewpoint was, it's because your body never got any nutrients at once. So it's still, it hasn't suppressed your appetite. It's still telling you to eat because you haven't given it anything substantial yet.
Right. And so a good way to look at that is, as a country, okay, we are overfed and undernourished.
Yeah.
We eat too many calories, but most of them are junk calories.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're not getting vitamins, minerals, polyphenols, all the different things you get from eating healthy food, and that's one of the great thing about eating good, healthy, organic vegetables is they are packed full of nutrients.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what your body needs, really. So another thing that's really interesting is what's become one of the fastest growing diseases in our country is dementia and Alzheimer's disease. Okay. And a lot of doctors are calling that type 3 diabetes.
So sugar plays
because
a role.
the sugar forms plaques in your brain, and then your brain just doesn't function as well.
And we talk about how ketones are a much cleaner fuel source for your brain.
Burn much cleaner. Your brain prefers to run on ketones if possible, which is a byproduct of fat metabolism.
Right,
so
and that's one thing we were told to avoid. We were told to avoid fats for so long.
Exactly.
Fats are bad. Fats are bad. Right, and then that's what Nina talks about in the Big Fat Surprise.
Yeah, and so you're looking at now we're getting chronic numbers, huge numbers of Alzheimer's disease, dementia. Give you an example, just even diabetes. Okay, there's over, I believe it's like 100 million people in the United States who are either diabetic or pre-diabetic. Okay, now we spend on average, if someone's a full-fledged diabetic, about $14,000 a year, okay, on their treatment, doctor's visits, medications, drugs, etc. Okay, multiply 14,000 times 100 million. I mean, that'll bankrupt the country on its own. And then you throw everything else, on top, Alzheimer's. But a kind of interesting thing about sugar, too, how addictive it is, there's a researcher, I believe he's at Oregon State University, and he will take drug addicts, okay, and they'll see when they're on heroin or cocaine or anything like that,
like what their brain's doing,
what part of their brain lights up from that. Okay, then they'll take people and put them on sugar and see what part of their brain lights up. It's the exact same part of their brain as heroin and cocaine. Okay, so it's that kind of addiction center. Okay, they'll also do, and you can't do this with humans, obviously, it's unethical, but they'll take rats, okay, and they'll get them addicted to cocaine. It's maybe a certain color or something. Then they'll get them addicted to heroin, okay, another color, maybe different shape or smell or something like that. Then they'll get them addicted to sugar, okay. Then, okay, they'll give them a choice of the 3. They almost always choose sugar over the other 2. Which is really scary, and it shows you the power of addiction,
right?
How it can affect you. It also shows you the power of food and how that affects you as well. And
I think it
it's
also
not
helps
just go ahead.
Portray to people kind of where we are now as a country, and see like, oh, okay, well, it's easy to understand how so many people get wrapped up and caught in that sugar addiction, especially at a young age when we're giving kids everything chock full with sugar, right? You're giving them yogurt, you give them applesauce, you give them whatever. Everything that we give our kids is packed with sugar, and then they give them a treat, whatever.
Yeah.
Just all these things at a
You're,
young age.
you're setting up an addiction pattern.
Exactly, exactly. And it's easy to see how we've led to where we are now, but we have to be sort of the leaders of the change in our life. And I think one of the easiest things to do is controlling your environment. And if you have a family, if you have kids, just going through your cabinet and looking at stuff and noticing if it's bad or good, and throw out all the crap, throw out the sugars, throw out the stuff with fake sweeteners in it. If you can't pronounce the ingredient, throw it
Don't
out.
eat it.
Yeah,
Don't eat it
exactly.
at all.
If
Don't buy it either.
If there's 10 ingredients, well, yeah, right. Don't
Yeah.
buy it too. But then talking back to cleaning out your kitchen, like if it's got 10, 15 ingredients in it, it's probably time to throw that out.
Yeah.
But like you said, don't buy it either. When you go to the grocery store, stick to the fresh produce, stick to the meats, stay out of the aisles as much as possible. Except for, now that Mark Sisson actually has his Primal products in most grocery stores. I was
Pretty
really
good.
happy to see that.
Yeah. Vote with your pocketbook. You can't always really great concept of getting back into Stoic philosophy here, where you can control and what you can't control.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't worry about what's out of your control.
Right.
Okay. Because that's not going to do you or anyone else any good.
But put your
what's in your
where
control?
You want it to,
okay.
Yeah.
I can vote with my pocketbook. I can buy food, etc.
Locally,
that's
right,
healthy locally.
Well.
The other thing too, if you're buying stuff in the grocery store, okay, do you want to give money to Monsanto?
Right, exactly.
I'm not a fan at all of Monsanto or a lot of these other food companies. I don't want to give them one dime.
Right.
Okay, so I can vote with my pocketbook.
Yep.
Okay, enough people do that, then it makes a big difference. Then you get more organic things out there. You have more farmers markets. You have more food co-ops. Okay, where people have access to these types of things.
Yep. It's got to be enough people for a company to make a change. I mean, when they came out with the fact about the ingredient in the bread for Subway, it had been known for a few weeks, but once it really got traction, and enough people were buzzing about it, and it was on social media and everything like that, that's when they had made a change as an organization.
Yeah. So what I like to talk about all the time is you talk about food, nutrition, exercise, lifestyle. Some people aren't going to listen to you. Okay. Some people might not listen today, but they might listen 6 months from now when they're not feeling good. We got to beat that drum. Same thing, because you never know who's out there who's going to listen to you, who you can improve their life.
Yep. And that's I'm glad you said that.
So if you talk to enough people, what if you talk to 100 people? You might reach, I don't know, depending on where you're at in the country or what the people are like, 5, 10, 20 people. But that's what you want. You know what I mean? You want to get that in front of people. You want them to say, no, that's bullshit, or wow, that sounds interesting.
You want to stimulate. I don't have all the right answers, but I can start asking the right questions.
Yeah.
And I want to stimulate thought in people. I want to turn people on. I want people to be awake. I want people to ask questions and dig further. I mean, people always telling me pasta's bad for you. Pasta's bad for you. I'm half Italian. I love pasta, and I eat it all the time, especially when I'm in Italy. And I don't really have the same issues that people talk about. And I dig further and I look into it. And it's like the way all the pasta I buy is always made in Italy, and all the pasta that people probably eat is all made in America. And I look into it further, and not only are the regulations way different in the way you can grow wheat in Italy versus the way you can grow wheat here, but the process of making the pasta is way different. In Italy, they'll use like the durum wheat, they'll use the semolina, and you get the germ and the bran of the wheat when in the process of making the pasta.
Yes.
Whereas here, we just mash that wheat down to like a fine powder. It becomes a simple carb. We lose the germ, we lose the bran, we lose that shell, we lose the fiber of the wheat itself, and it becomes garbage. It becomes nutritionally empty.
Yes.
It's just, it's always all relative, in my opinion. You can say everything's bad for you. You can say everything's good for you, but it's all relative. And
question everything. I mean, everything that we say or anybody else, question it. But the great thing we have today, access to information. You can go on the internet. All these guys have websites, blogs, podcasts, books. So Dr. Gundry, The Plant Paradox, he's been published in close to 1,000. He's had close to 1,000 articles published in medical journals.
That's amazing.
On heart disease, heart surgery, food, nutrition, etc. So he might be somebody you want to listen to.
He's a big name that I definitely
Absolutely
would promote. Dr. Mercola as well.
Dr. Mercola is fantastic. And Dr. Mercola, what I always do if I hear something new or
You go
somebody
check
asks me
with
about
him
something,
to see?
I'll Google Mercola sugar or
Because he's always
Mercola
at the
cancer
brink of it.
because he'll always have something on
Yep.
there, and a lot of times a video, and you start to watch that. That's a good starting point, and then you can branch out from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw about 6 days ago, he published an article that autophagy is finally being looked at as a viable treatment for diseases.
Yes.
I thought that was pretty fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I believe it was Hippocrates who said all disease starts in the gut. And
okay.
So that's, where you want to start looking and then go out from there.
Didn't he also say let food be medicine?
Yeah.
Yep. No, it's so true. Like we remember was having a conversation with you and we said, people are always like, the cure for cancer. We have it. Preventative.
Yes.
There's so many preventative measures.
Right. So we can spend basically, billions of dollars on cancer research and drug companies and different things like that. But here's a fact, okay? If you don't want to get lung cancer, don't smoke.
Yeah.
Probably you won't get lung cancer.
Yeah.
Okay. If you don't want to get stomach/colon cancer, etc., don't eat processed foods.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Start eating organic, grass-fed, like people ate for 2+ million years.
Yep.
They didn't have cancer 10,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago, 50,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago. When they look at the skeletal remains of people that lived back then, there's no cancer.
Interesting.
There's a few hunter-gatherer tribes left in Africa and then down in South America as well. They don't have all these Western diseases that we have. They don't have diabetes. They don't have cancer. They don't have osteoporosis.
Yeah.
So if you want to avoid all that, okay, start looking at your options.
And it's a shame because, a sad part that plays into it is human behavior and the way we operate and politics. And it's a shame that it plays into it. But even, Forbes puts out a list of the most profitable businesses, and number one is the pharmaceutical companies. They have the highest profit margin on all of their products, and they even published an article saying that the cure a disease platform or business model is not a sustainable business model.
It's not.
It's like, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Who gives a shit if the business lives on? The whole goal is people's health.
Yeah. So in this country, everything revolves around profit and money.
Yeah.
So, if you look at it, okay, you got these food companies making cold cereal and all this stuff that's complete garbage, that's addictive.
Mm-hmm.
They get you on that from the time you're young.
Yep.
Time you hit 30, 40, 50, you're starting to show diabetes, high blood pressure, all kinds of health problems. Yep. Okay. Then you go into the medical system. Okay. And what do? They put you on drugs. Yep. Okay. Because they're not trying to get you better. They're trying to keep you sick, but keep you alive.
Yeah. A lot of Western philosophy. I completely agree with this. That a lot of Western philosophy is if you have a rock in your shoe, take some Advil versus find the rock and remove the rock. Now, I will say that there are some screw ups in this country, but we do have to count our blessings. And I do think that just like how we're saying, like, look into things further, be skeptical, get second opinion. Same thing with your doctor. If you have a doctor, get a second opinion, and it never hurts. I'm not saying that all doctors are bad, but I think you sometimes have to weave through the system to find the right one that's going to be your advocate and really care about promoting your health for longevity,
right?
And not just trying to sell you the next prescription,
just to get you to be a consumer of drugs for the next 30 years.
Exactly. And I
so
think
what you want to look for nowadays that is out there more and more and more is functional medical doctors.
Okay.
And you can look them up online. Just type that into Google. Or Chris Kresser is also a functional medical doctor in California. And he wrote a book this last year. I believe it's called, William Davis wrote a book called Undoctored. And he's of the Wheat Belly fame, the author of Wheat Belly. Mm-hmm. And he talks about like, hey, you've got to take control of your health. Okay.
Yeah.
So you need to look right now what's going on and what your options are. Okay. Chris Kresser wrote a book called Unconventional Medicine that came out last year. And they're both along the same path as, okay, you take control of your health. You can order your own blood tests. You don't need to go to the doctor for that.
Yeah.
Okay. If you can find a functional medical doctor or someone who's more holistic in nature, okay, that way you have more of a say in the treatment or your options or your lifestyle, etc.
Yeah.
And your chances of curing something is much greater.
And I think the key aspect here is just having a broader perspective, and not one side is right, not one side is wrong, but there's a combination of the two.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that stands out and comes to my mind is a book and a quote from the book. And it's Midnight's Children, and the author is Salman Rushdie. And in this book, I remember reading a line that really echoed through to me when I was in middle school or freshman high school or anything. And he says, to understand a single concept, you have to swallow the world. And I think it's so true. I think just kind of like a holistic medical practitioner, you have to really kind of be able to look at every aspect of human behavior, of different systems in our body, of the way that food and nutrition plays a role, and different types of nutrition, to really understand maybe where someone's problems are or where they need to head to be healthier and be stronger.
Yes.
So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah,
I'm going to include these two, this functional medical doctors, Dr. Chris Kresser. There was another name you said, William
Davis.
William Davis.
He came out about probably 10, 15 years ago with Wheat Belly. Since then, he's written books, cookbooks. He's got a great blog as well.
I want to make sure I include
some other things. If you yourself or somebody who's having cognitive problems, okay, Dr. David Perlmutter has a great website. He's got a bunch of books. If you've heard of Brain Grain, and you can go to his website, and he's got a bunch of like short 10, 15-minute videos. Dr. Perlmutter, Perlmutter. Cool. If you or someone has, let's say, MS or any other autoimmune disorders, Dr. Rebecca Walls, WAHLS, has written books. She's basically a functional medical doctor, and she herself has had MS. So
she cures it with her diet.
She cures it with diet, exercise, lifestyle. She has a TED Talk that's fantastic. So if you're not into books, just type into YouTube Rebecca Walls TED Talk. I believe it's about an hour, or you can get a condensed version in like 20 minutes, but it's fantastic. It's very inspiring too. So I think for the most, not only do you want to get good information, that's her right there,
It's Terry Walls.
Terry Walls. Yeah, Terry Walls.
Dr. Terry Walls, yeah. The Walls protocol, she's brilliant. She's a genius. She's definitely a pioneer in what she's doing. And I hate to cut you off, but we're coming on 40 minutes here, and I love what we're talking about, but I don't want to rush through anything. Yeah. So this is literally the first 3 of 10 of our primal laws to get through. So
that was 2.
That was only 2.
Yeah. Okay.
So I hope you're comfortable recording another one, because I'd love to have you back on again.
So I'm going to give people just a short one, which is number 9.
Yeah.
Okay, this won't take long. So my client Skip, who fell off the ladder, shattered his femur, and had to have surgery and things like that. Number 9 is avoid stupid mistakes. Okay. So when you get in your car, wear your seatbelt. Okay. Yep. If you're on a motorcycle or a bike, wear a helmet.
Don't text and drive either.
Don't text and drive.
It's just the most dangerous thing you could do.
Simple things, if you think about for 30 seconds. Yeah. Is this something I really should do?
Yep.
Okay. Because I'm 53 now. I used to mountain bike like a maniac going downhill. I don't do that anymore. I've been over my handlebars enough that I know that, I'm just rolling the dice. At some point, I'm really going to mess myself up. And what could be worse than all of a sudden being incapacitated? Yeah. Where you can't exercise and you can't get outside and you can't do all of that. So don't do stupid things.
Don't do stupid things. That's some good advice right there. And, it's funny because you'd think these primal laws be pretty straightforward, and people would probably think to themselves like, oh, well, duh. But stop and think throughout the day how many silly mistakes you're making, or how many times you're not making that healthy choice to eat something, and how many times you possibly are eating something poisonous. So all these laws can, and everybody can use these laws or apply these laws in some way. So I think they're super important to hear. That's why I want to take our time with them. So I'm
Awesome, I
happy
agree.
that we only got through 3. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
But
last thing I'll mention is from an activity standpoint, sitting is the new smoking. I've done a bunch of presentations on that. Sitting is actually worse than smoking for you. Okay. So you don't try and be more active throughout the day. Don't sit for longer than a half hour without getting up, moving around, standing, things like that. Because from longevity standpoint, for every hour you sit, you're knocking off a couple hours of your life. And that's from, I think his name is James Levine at the Mayo Clinic. If you want to read more about this, my blog is Emmett, EMMETT, and it's got a search bar so you can search food reviews, movement, sitting is the new smoking, anything along those lines. But we all have access to great information now.
Yep.
So,
but sometimes about weaving through to find the right and good information.
Absolutely, for you.
Right.
So if you just start with like one simple thing, if you take someone off the street or out of Walmart, and they want to make a change with their life, okay, it's simple, just one thing at a time.
Yep.
Number one, I would say don't drink soda. That's by far the worst offender. From a health standpoint. So, and then you can go from there.
Yeah.
And find, these people we talked about, these doctors, just start to read, start to watch the short videos. YouTube is a great resource for all of this.
Absolutely. Yeah, the information's out there. And again, for those listening, we went over, or Emmett specifically went over a lot of names and books and articles to check out. So I'm going to include all this stuff in the show notes, as well as a link to his blog, another good source of information. So again, this is just the first of many. Emmett, it's been great having you on.
Thank you, man.
Thank you
Appreciate
so much.
It. That was fun.